Rose pruning can seem daunting, but it doesn't have to be. This series of videos will provide you with step-by-step guide, very beginner-friendly guide to pruning roses for maximum health and beautiful, gorgeous blooms. Hello my dear gardeners, Olga Carmody with you today, Master Gardener from Connecticut. The first rose I'm pruning today in my garden is modern shrub rose, Lady of Shalott. Lady of Shalott is the star of my garden, and it is David Austin rose. Majority of his shrub roses are ever-blooming varieties, meaning that Lady of Shalott will produce magnificent blooms at the beginning of June, and then it will continue blooming till the beginning of the frost in the fall. So general approach to shrub roses, modern shrub roses pruning would be a light pruning. Of course, we want to get rid of diseased, dead wood. That would be step number one, and we're going to go through all of it. It's easier to see it once than to read in the books about all this process of trimming roses. And it's not as scary as a lot of gardeners think. Spring pruning encourages new growth of the rose. Pruning helps to remove all dead, damaged wood. We basically do the job of nature in the forest, where we can see a lot of dead wood laying on the ground. But in our gardens, we don't want that to happen, right? So we allow the plant to focus its energy on producing new and healthy growth. And that leads to more vigorous and productive blooms. By spring pruning, we can shape the plant. By cutting back rows in spring, you can shape them to promote a more balanced and attractive structure. And this can prevent them from becoming too leggy or unruly. It ensures new growth in a way that's pleasing to the eye and more manageable. Pruning removes crowded or crossing branches, which improves air circulation around the plant. And better airflow helps prevent fungal diseases such as powdery mildew, which can thrive in damp and stagnant conditions. By removing dead and diseased wood, we stop spreading of diseases because diseased issues can spread to healthy parts from the diseased or dead parts. Roses typically, and Lady of Shalott is representative of those roses, they typically bloom on a new growth. So pruning in spring encourages the plant to put out fresh, flowering wood, resulting in more and often larger blooms. Overgrown or neglected roses can become tangled and harder to manage, and pruning helps keep the plant's size in check, making it easier to care for throughout the growing season. When to prune roses? Well, it all depends what type of rose you have. That is why it's so important to keep those plant tags when your rose arrives into the garden, to know what type of rose you have. Lady of Shalott is reblooming variety. It creates blooms on the new wood. What does that mean? Whatever growth happens that year, Lady of Shalott will create blooms on those stems, and it will bloom away at the beginning of June. But the good representative of old garden rose, which blooms only once a year and create blooms on old wood, is Peggy Martin rose, which is hybrid multiflora rose, old garden rose. So the pruning schedule would be quite different from this rose. The major pruning, where we are fixing mistakes and reshaping the plant, would be after its big major blooming time in spring. But we are going to do in our next video with Lady of Shalott, since it is a remontant rose, ever-blooming rose. We can safely shape it, throw away diseased wood, any crossing stems, and still our rose will bloom well, because it creates blooms on the new wood. We need to go through a little bit of rose anatomy here. So let's see which stems are old and which stems are new here on my Lady of Shalott. Let's go from another side because sun is strong here. So here we go, look, this is a new stem. It was probably created last year, the same as with that one. You see how nice and green it is? This is probably second year stem, and this one definitely third year. So I'm going to pay attention to third year stems on this shrub with possibility of removing them. Let's go and remove the dead stems on this Lady of Shalott. And we are not going to look at the top of the rose. The beginning of pruning is always at the bottom. It doesn't matter how beautiful and how many healthy stems are at the top of the old one. If this thing is old and it's going to die, everything else here would be dead. So there is no point of looking at the top of the shrub and just do the manicure trimming. You have to start from the bottom and look at the first step. The first step is to remove any dead stems. And there are several of them here. Let's do that. I try to cut all the way to the ground level, not to leave stumps. First of all, they're not very sightly. And second of all, if stumps are present, a rose doesn't want to break buds there on that space. Just look at this branch. No matter how beautiful this stem is, right? It has so many divisions. But then at the bottom, look at the dieback. It's definitely happening beyond this stem. Otherwise, I could have just cut here and save this portion of the rose. But the dieback is going too far, and I know that stem is going to be dead in the middle of spring. So why would rose need to use all that energy to keep all this growth and not reinvest it into some healthy shoots and creating beautiful blooms, right? So this had to go as well. So all the dead and diseased stems are removed, old ones. So now the step number 3 is fix the problem of any crossing stems. And sometimes I do the garden cheating. For example, look here, there are perfectly beautiful young shoots crossing. So what I do a little cheating with the help of this stick. I am going to tie this stem instead of trying to cut it out. I will tie it and will direct it to the side. Oh, I didn't cut this one. I will direct it to the side of my Lady of Shalott. This way, let me show you how I do this. This way, in several weeks, this stem will be permanently bent, and I don't need to cut perfectly healthy rose bearing stem out of this bush. Here we go, you see? And I just stick it into the ground on an angle, and here it is, perfectly fine here. Next step would be to remove any spindly growth, because that growth cannot produce viable shoots. And again, we are not looking at the top of the rose, we are just looking through the middle and taking out anything smaller than the pencil, because it is not going to produce a rose. It's too small to support the rose. As you can see, I'm taking my time looking through all the branches in the middle of the shrub, cutting everything unwanted which is not going to produce a bloom, and opening my Lady of Shalott up for more air circulation. I'm going to focus now on the top canopy of the rose, reducing its size maybe just a little bit, maybe half of a foot. and I'm going to trim to the out-facing bud. It is important with some roses. With this one is, you see its nature of kind of blooming towards the sun, and I'm always struggling to keep it that way. So if I cut this bud here facing this way, my blooming stem will go this way, and I don't want it to happen. I want it to go that way. So it's always kind of encouraging the rose to have this nice proportional shape. And how do you do it? By cutting just over the outward facing bud, or into the direction, the bud into the direction you want the stem to grow, because what's Lady of Shalott is going to create? These buds are going to develop into shoots, and there would be a rose. So if this bud is going this way, rose would be here, but if the bud is going here, this way out, rose will be here, right? So this is what I'm doing right now, generally reducing the size of my rose to somewhat a smaller height. That is it about pruning modern shrub rose. When you have this step-by-step approach, it's not so overwhelming. So you're welcome to look through this video and do the same approach to your rose. This way rose is all ready for spring. A well-balanced shrub, I like it. And as you can see, there are two Lady of Shalott growing, and I treat them as one shrub. Looking very good for this year. Very good. Looking forward to beautiful blooms. Our next trimming video would be on Peggy Martin Rose, right there at the back. And it is hybrid multiflora rose. See you in our next video, and happy gardening.